Hi, my name is Tiffany Bova. I'm the Global Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. I'm thrilled to be with you today to talk about customer experience and the power of human and technology. So much has changed over the last 2 years that I just don't have enough time to cover it all. But what I can tell you is that the focus on the human side of business and the customer side of business has amplified. Before we get started, let me say thank you. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for your support across Korea. You've been so kind to me over the last few years, and I greatly appreciate it. So let me set the scene. Let me set the scene on what's happening from a pure customer experience standpoint. What got us here? Number one, work is changing. Whether you go back to the office, whether you stay working from home, whether you work in a flexible environment. At the end of the day, work has changed and changed forever. Now, depending on where you're listening to this in the world, you could have subtle differences, of course. But ultimately, I think the conversation around where we work, how we work, and what things we do for our people, our employees, to do that work is having a renaissance of a conversation today, which is a good thing. The next, competition is increasing. It's coming from everywhere, really. Small providers, small companies are able to compete against much larger ones because of the democratization of technology. Digitizing the business has changed so much for so many, but one thing it has done is it's given access to the customer to compete to all kinds of organizations. It's also allowed smaller companies to be able to partner with each other, leverage big technology capabilities, could give them the appearance of being a bigger organization. The next, customers are empowered, and that's what really got us here. The empowerment to customers has been a long journey over the last 25 or 30 years. As we moved from the Industrial Revolution, first revolution, all the way to the fourth industrial revolution, which many would argue is almost behind us, and Web 3.0 will be next. But when you think about this empowerment to customers, it has a lot to do with this access to technology. They have information at their fingertips. They can conduct commerce from anywhere. They can communicate with brands around the world. But it also means that your people have to be able to serve those customers in these new ways, in the new channels that they want to communicate in, at the speed in which they want to hear back from you. So we have to think differently about talking about business to business or business to consumer the same way. The lines are blurring between those two. I like to call it B2E, business to everything, everyone, and every experience. And that puts us right into the topic of customer experience. This image is from my book, Growth IQ, which has been translated in 9 languages, but I'm very proud of the fact that it was translated into Korean. So customer experience was my very first growth path in the book. There were 10 paths to growth. And the reason I started with the customer is because it needs to be the focus and the center of the decisions that you make as a company. What products you develop, design, or partner with another company in order to get them out of distribution so that you can sell them, whatever it is, you have to make sure that it's satisfying the needs and the wants of those customers. Now, experience is a lot of things. Sometimes it's just the way your customers feel when they engage with your people. It could be the experience they have with the technology that you develop or the products that you develop. Is it easy? Is it friendly to use? If something doesn't work, is it easy for them to find an answer? If they call a call center, is the person on the other end able to answer their questions right away? Experience can mean a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you have to start by agreeing on what a good customer experience means to your company so that you can do the work to communicate to your teams on what is needed to do to deliver those compelling and meaningful experiences. Now, meeting these new expectations is where it all has begun. As I said, this has been a transition over the last 40 or 50 years. But what we saw happen in the last 2 years has been this acceleration of digital, more so, some say, than we've seen in the last decade. With that has come a lot of technology capabilities and disruption. But what also has come out of it is your customers have been able to engage with you in different ways. Because as their expectations rise, so do you need to continue to innovate and develop those solutions. Customers will remember the experience they have with you and your company much longer than the price that they pay. We've got a lot of research that shows that they will not only remember the price that they paid, but they are willing to pay more for a better experience. This is not about a conversation on reducing costs, but rather increasing value. Now, customer experience is a combination of lots of things, as I said, another image from my book, Growth IQ. So I will tell you that it isn't one role. It's all the roles in the organization, but the customer has to be at the center. Customer centricity is important. Now, there are many definitions around customer centricity. Does it mean you give the same level of service to all of your customers equally? Or do you find those high value customers and center your attention on them? I believe it's a little bit of both. Technology has given us the capabilities today to deliver fast service and quality service and value-based service at scale with things like AI and bots and machine learning and big data and analytics. All of that technology has allowed us to scale these unique and low touch, high value experiences across the business. Now, the deeper value driven customer relationship happens between the customer and the brand in that place where they meet. It's important to remember that it's about value. It's about the customer relationship. It's about how those two things interconnect. Now, customer experience has reached a tipping point. This stat is from a few years ago. We've got new research out that's showing that this number has actually increased to about 88%. 88% of customers feel an experience a company provides is as important as the products or service. So you can develop amazing products, but if the experience your customers have in learning about it, buying it, getting help to use it, then they're not going to want to come back. Also, they're not going to want to buy more from you or try new products and services that you launch. So you have to make sure that you keep in almost tandem the quality of your product and the quality of that experience. You can have a product that is good enough, surrounded by an amazing experience, you will win. If you have a really amazing product and not a great experience, you will lose. So we have to think about using experience as that new product. Remember what I said, business to everything, everyone, and every experience, regardless of if it is B2B, business to consumer, retail, manufacturing, financial services, it doesn't matter. Customers, regardless of industry, demand that you deliver these amazing and compelling experiences. Now, this digital imperative has hit a moment of truth. There is no question that so much has changed. We've become digital first globally. And I think this is where we have opportunity for improvement. Customers want to have consistent interactions across the departments that they deal with. Let's just focus on sales, marketing, and customer service. If you just think about the interaction between those three, whether it's in person, whether it's online exclusively, or whether it's a hybrid of both, remember, competition is changing. Customer expectations are changing. And so we have to make sure we keep that aligned. Unfortunately, half of customers feel that sales, service, and marketing don't share information. They feel like that experience they're getting is very disjointed. They don't feel like it's coming from one company, one voice. That one experience is really, really important. But ultimately, I would say that 63% of customers say how they obtained goods and services has transformed since 2020. So we're not going to go back to the way that it was. Do I believe we're going to stay in this hyper digital world? I also don't think so. I think we're going to fall somewhere in between that, depending on industry, region, segment, size company, and who the customer is. But important to always make sure that you keep these things top of mind. Now, if I'm going to just boil it down to a few quick things, how to deliver this enhanced experience across your sales, marketing, and customer service organization as an example. The first is enabling your people to play multiple roles. What if somebody in a call center has to jump on a sales call, or somebody who's a salesperson has to jump on a customer service call? You want to make sure that people in your organization understand a little bit about what everybody does so that they can realize how each role plays a part in the total experience your company delivers to your customers. The next is relying on technology. Look, I work at Salesforce, I understand, but technology is so embedded in everything that we do that this is the time, if you've been holding back on making those investments, even if they're hard, now is the time to do it. Because of those things I started off this conversation with, so much is changing. We're moving to digital first. Customer expectations have forever changed. They're going to obtain goods and service in different ways than they have. They want that real-time, personalized, customized experience. The only way you can do that at scale is by leveraging technology. And then prioritizing the metrics that align to a customer. Push as much data as you can to those front lines. Those frontline people, like your customer service agents, your hospitality hosts, your salespeople, people who work at the retail stores, those customer-facing people know firsthand what customers are looking for. If you can expose the data to them so that they can provide those amazing experiences when they are face-to-face with the customer, that is fantastic and differentiated. Also, if it's in a call center environment or someone's talking to them over chat or via email, making sure your people also have access to that data. Otherwise, they have to look for that information. They have to maybe go to another group, and we end up back at that disconnection between the multiple groups in the company. Or worse yet, they have to pass the customer off to somebody else. You always want to make sure you're grounded and rooted in the data so that you can put the things in the hands of the people that are touching your customers every day. Now, that was a lot about the customer. So let's talk about the role of marketing in really delivering this, that we do not have a technology problem. We have a people and process problem. Now, what do I mean by that? There is technology out there to manage customer experience, journey map the customer's experience, uncover the data, push insights out, CRM, Salesforce, and others. Ultimately, there is enough technology out there to solve a lot of the challenges that businesses have. But unfortunately, the people and processes are holding back the full value of what technology can give you. If people don't know how to use the technology, it doesn't help them. If the process hasn't been modernized as the technology has been modernized, it won't help them. You have to have those things all working together to be able to deliver that experience. And marketing is at the center of that. The first thing is that understanding what is it that's going to drive that kind of experience for marketers to uncover what customers are looking for. Artificial intelligence is at the tip of that spear. Growth in use by marketers since 2018 is 186%. Use by marketers to bridge online and offline experiences, 73%. To make sure that we are connecting what your customers are doing offline with what they're doing online. Those two things have to come in harmony. Now, unfortunately, what's happened for sort of mid-size and large organizations is the number of data sets that they're responsible for taking care of and managing and making sure the data is clean and integrated is increasing. In 2019, it was sort of 8 data sources. Now we're well up over 12. And ultimately, without getting connection between those data sources, there's no way for you to be able to understand what kind of experience your customers actually want from you. So we need to make sure that you're using that technology the right way, because marketers are still not totally satisfied with their ability to balance that personalization with the way in which customers actually want you to engage with them. Sometimes they may feel like you're not using the data appropriately, you're not using it enough. They might feel you're using it perfectly well. But with each given month and quarter and year that goes by, that expectation from the customer on how, where, when, and why you use that data will be changing. Now, make no mistake, marketers are doubling down on this business value. Understanding how do we take the lessons learned in that B2C environment, the business to consumer, and apply it to the B2B environment. Because there's lots of lessons learned on the consumer side. And customers are saying, hold on a second, why is it so easy in my personal life to do things, yet it's really difficult for me to do those same kinds of things at work? A lot of the reasons is what I've just described. There's silos, there's duplication of efforts, the information is not sort of dynamic. So we want to make sure that all the things that you can do is, from a marketing perspective, you want to market, you want to learn from how well that campaign did, then you want to make adjustments and you want to market again, but you want to do that in real time. Because if you don't, you might put something out there from a marketing perspective, let it go for 2 or 3 or 4 quarters. And then by quarter 2, you're getting a diminished return. But if you don't know that's happening, how can you possibly adjust? So you want to make sure that your marketers have access to it. Now, this is a snapshot specifically for South Korea on what are the top 3 priorities for marketers. It's innovation, it's engaging with customers in real time, which we've talked a lot about. It's improving that marketing or ROI. The top 3 challenges: balancing personalization with customers and their comfort level with what you do with that information, engaging with customers in real time. So it's a top priority, but it's a top challenge, and innovating. Look, you can take almost those 3 and they're interchangeable. Big opportunity, big challenge. Now, the 3 metrics most often used are customer retention. How long do you have them? What's their lifetime value? How much are they spending? The revenue. And the third is the analytics you're getting from your web and mobile. Using AI, the top 3 use cases are bridge online and offline experiences, right? That's where that data really has the opportunity to shine, but you can't do it unless you have integration between all those data sets of what you're capturing offline and what you're capturing online. Taking that programmatic advertising and media buying to see what's working, what's not working, pulling back and doubling down on areas that you're seeing great performance. And then the last one, which was tied really for second, is surfacing those data insights, right? Making that available either through a dashboard or a report so people know what is, from a customer perspective, being valued and what is not. Now, having shared goals is a great way to get everybody on the same page, from sales teams to e-commerce teams to service teams. How do you make sure that there's some connection between the metrics you use in order to manage your teams? So that's just a quick snapshot on the marketing side, specifically for South Korea. So now the next part of this is you've got the customer, you've got the technology, and the third part is you. Investing in what you need to do to remain relevant and valuable and educated and capable to do your job. You have to stay curious. This statistic is from the World Economic Forum that 50% of all employees will need reskilling by 2025 globally. So if you've been doing something for a really long time and it's been very effective for you, you may have to think, how do I continue to reskill myself and focus on it like lifelong learning? Because 76% of global workers do not feel equipped with the resources needed to learn the digital skills required to succeed in the next 5 years. it's required for you to find ways to not only inspire your people to want to learn, but to get them to actually do it. 82% of those globally say they plan on learning, but only 28% are actively doing it. So there's a big gap between what is needed, what's available, and what's happening. So always encourage your teams to stay curious, to understand what changes are happening in the market and how it may impact the way they do their job, serve customers, and work together. Now, I could keep going on this topic for a really long time, and I know we're going to get to questions, but if you'd like further inspiration, we've got some research that you can download. I've got a podcast called What's Next with Tiffany Bova, and that's the cover to my book, Growth IQ, translated in Korean. So with that, I think we're going to open it up for questions, but I thank you so much. Once again, my name is Tiffany Bova. I'm the Global Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. So thank you for joining me. I think we're going to turn it over for some questions. So we've got a couple questions. One came in the current situation where the business environment is rapidly changing according to digital technology. Please explain the changing trend of the current customer experience, the value to be pursued to improve the customer experience, and the meaning of the platform for sustainable growth. Here's what I'd say there is it's really important that we understand what is changing in these business environments. When people ask me, where should I invest and where should I invest first? I always like to back up and say, what do your customers want from you? What do they value today versus what they might want from you in the future? But ultimately, you always have to remember that the experience you provide your customers is a platform for sustainable growth. Remember, if you develop amazing products, but the experience is not very good, it's hard for you to adjust at the moment when the customer is going to engage with you. You never know when that's going to be. So I think it's really important for you to keep track of the changes that are happening. Attending conferences like this is a great way, right? Listening to podcasts, reading books, whatever your industry demands, try to stay that continuous, curious learner so that you can stay ahead of those trends that may be coming at you. All right, the next question is about Telstra, an Australian telecommunications company, classified customers and allowed them who seem to be easily tempted by a competitor to leave to their competitors. So the question is, what's my opinion about the situation from the perspective of customer experience to minimize customer departure? Ultimately, if you give your customers the option to decide at each point that they engage with you to stay or go, it means all of the sudden your focus on making sure they always want to stay is increased. It's that moment that matters, the last touch you had with them that might impact their willingness to do business with you in the future. So if you can have that mindset where if we are going to commit to being better at customer experience and customer centricity, then we need to communicate to our customers, if you're not happy with us, vote by leaving. But if you have great experiences with us, vote by staying, by buying more, by sharing your positive experiences. It's a great way to get everybody in the company focused on the same thing. That if they just say, we're going to do whatever it takes to keep the customer from leaving, and if they leave, we're going to do everything it takes to get them back, instead of saying, we're going to create these amazing experiences so they never want to leave us. One of the things about losing customers is, unfortunately, many companies view it as a defensive move. They've left, I want to win them back, instead of doing it as an offensive move, creating these amazing experiences so that they don't ever want to leave. You stop that entire cycle from happening altogether. And if you're in a recurring revenue business, keeping customers is really important. Otherwise, you have to keep adding more customers on top of what you've lost from poor service or poor products, whatever it might be. So ultimately, there are things you can do to keep customers to stay. And Telstra's example of saying, if you're not happy with us, leave, puts a tremendous amount of pressure on all the people to make sure they're delivering everything that you've promised that you're going to. The next one is in the Korean market, the movement for super personalization is accelerating. Is improving customer experience important in all areas of customer contact, sales, marketing, and service? Here's what I'd say. I'd say hyper-personalization is absolutely important. But it's only important if that's what your customers demand from you. So the fact that it's rising in importance in the Korean market, I'm not sure if that is across the board in every industry, in every segment, in every size, in every type of company. But what I will say is personalization is critical, no question. How much personalization and how much effort do you want to put behind personalizing depends on what industry you're in and what your customers want. So my first piece of advice to you on that would be ask your customers, what kind of communication do they want from you? In what channel? What do they find valuable? And maybe it's not all customers. Maybe you create a couple of groups of your top customers and ask them in a very formalized way so that you can test your hypothesis of what you think is super important to them today as well as tomorrow. Well, I think that's all we have. So once again, thank you so much for spending time with me today. My name is Tiffany Bova. I'm the Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. I appreciate your time and attention. Have a great rest of your day.